Solidarity did. But a mere party card, union card, academic title, these are not tickets that will instantly transport us to heaven. I myself had such a solidarity card. That's not the scuttlebutt. Our salvation is a more delicate angelic realm. 1653. Incomplete theorems, concepts, and hypotheses that are the product of the exploratory activity of the intellect, and that represent certain solutions on the social level, satisfy no one in depth. One could even draw the conclusion that such a form of developing consciousness is simply a waste of time. She leads to nothing. She has no timeless authority or professional qualifications to teach and educate people in transcendental knowledge and deeds. Jesus is the model here, but the priests have made Jesus into a churchman to collect trays. Jesus was not about such a church, not about pumps to improve the image of the material wealth of the church, but about the structure of the inner drive to live a pure, humble, and righteous life. Celibacy is not at all necessary for this. In fact, it should be forbidden, as it damages health and causes various mental and material deviations. When John Paul II flew to Warsaw, he had a great speech to the Poles in front of the Grand Cross. It did not go without pomp. I asked Padre Pio about it. He replied, "God does not approve of this pomp." 1654. What can be the highest authority? Certainly not an experiment, because it does not cause certainty, but erring. At the level of matter, there are a few iron laws, and they are very concrete, but they cannot be a model for thinking. This authority can be God Himself, the idea of absolute perfection, and the ineffable for us to make us happy. 1655. Faith currently replaces knowledge that we do not yet have access to. In scientific discovery, there is the same faith at the beginning. We believe that we will discover something, calculate something, compare something. That is why it is said, there are three: faith, hope, love. Of these three, love is the most important. The rest will fall away when we know the fullness of love. There will be John, Padre Pio's words, 1656. We are moving towards youth. We leave old age with the old earth. We go to new, always fresh planets, heavenly planets with God. Right now we are on the planets of the aliens, the former angels. They are the ones who committed the notorious original sin because they decided to leave heaven a little riskily. And what's intriguing about that? That we did it too, which is why there's so much smoke behind us throughout the space empire. Some even say that they live in some kind of hell. And this is true. Let's wander this way with our adventures, so that we can leave this empire fairly soon. 1657. Love is not just about feeling for one person. It doesn't. Jesus does not teach such love. Love is, and it needs to be activated every day in thoughts to all angels, the earthly ones as well. You can love your neighbor's soul, and he doesn't even have to know it at all. You send love everywhere you can. That's what it's all about. Everyone can. Love multiplies as we think about it and talk about it. It buds naturally. It is a wonderful feeling. Mystics and artists know it best. When we get angry, love languishes. Eternal longing on sidewalks you wander and streets into city after city into field. You seek love's solace, you expect May melodies. Today you remembered the scent, and the evenings are longing for you. Longing unheard of squeezes your heart. You want to scream, cry and pray at the same time. Your spirit burns as if in flames. You feel into yourself unfathomable love, in spite of these longings that tear your heart. However, thoughts of you heal me instantly, and I want to live forever. 1658. The search for happiness is common. However, often in this search we lose our orientation and choose evil under the guise of good. But when we do reflect, we need to return and cleanse our souls. The fact that we choose evil is not only our fault, Padre Pio's words. It is a team game of all civilizations in the universe. The struggle for survival in galactic heavens created unnecessarily against the will of God results precisely in ignorance, confusion, and limitation of everything. Hell is about beauty and hell at the same time. And what is the cosmos like? Just like this. 1659. This is not what the Christian mission is about, to engage in polemics, clashes, and wars with anyone. polemics belong to imperfect forms of dialogue. Christianity and Catholicism are by definition not dogmatic, but only open to beautiful love and knowledge of God. If it is different, if the political and ecclesiastical tradition has developed different assumptions, that is very bad. One can expect a war in the name of God. Every religion must be purified, perfected, brought closer to the heart of man. It's too cold in the church. There are too many bricks and not enough nice feeling, too many devotionals and not enough love. Padre Pio's words. 1660. More can be said with silence and a smile than with a philosophical lecture. Philosophy and knowledge is drowned in ignorance and philosophical nonsense. Until we know the fullness, this is what will happen. And where is the fullness of life and knowledge? It is not in galactic life. It is certainly with God, in the heavenly, eternal life called life in love. Here on earth, there is a big mess with it, which is why there are so many philosophical, political, educational, and economic systems. Most of them fulfill nothing for the soul. Utopia. This is what we wanted, and it's what we continue to create. Maybe unconsciously, but it happened. Now the question and decisions. How to get out of all this? Jesus was not the worst at this idea. He solved the riddle of life. But what the emperors and clerics made of it, it makes you want to cry. 1661. The most important thing is to learn not to compete and not to hate. It costs a lot of effort to achieve such attitudes. The premise of the cosmos is devastating competition. Competition in the economy and in love. The utopia of cosmic private non-beings. With God it is quite different. There one lives differently, as in a fairy tale, and the most beautiful, noble one. There everyone and everything will be yours without limitation. Padre Pio's words. 1662. Whoever knows God's transcendent nature and knows his holy deeds, having left this body, attains the kingdom of heaven. Anyone who undertakes a holy life, especially through the constant deconcentration of his egoism, automatically becomes pure. After the death of the body, immediately as a result of his devotion to love, he attains the spiritual world. 1663. Love is fulfilled by thinking of our holy parents and achieves great power in this life. Those who follow the system of love are never influenced by the results of their material actions and become holy. In contrast, all others from the smallest microbe to the great ones of this world are subject to the laws of selfishness. And this impedes the development of holiness in all areas of thought. Is this some kind of revolution? Yes, a revolution at the level of identity and thought. It is a utopia, but nevertheless it is necessary to try. Let it be a holy utopia of non-aggression of deeds and thoughts, religious and non-religious. 1664. The most important thing is the identity of the soul beyond all beliefs and religions. The soul is love only and exclusively. Beliefs and incomplete thoughts come from the fallen science of various cosmic civilizations. The cosmos has run into a black hole, and at the bottom of the black hole, one does not know what else is there. Storm. You sail into the depths of intellect. A storm encounters you. Then many things become complex for you. Storm urges. You do not embrace everything. Let the rudder out of your hand. You start to wander. Lose patience. Turmoil of the mind occurs. A sudden question comes to your mind and you get no answer. You don't know in which direction to sail. Lost your orientation. You don't know where you are wandering. And the storm continues to grow. Waves of different thoughts hit you. Doubt pours into your soul. You don't know what will happen, and you call for help. You pray in the void of thought. Fight against the wave of evil thoughts. You are finally overwhelmed by peace and tranquility. Happy again. Waves have thrown you to the shore of knowledge. You have won. Gained renewed faith in love. 1665. Love believes everything. This is the spiritual principle. But materialistic careerists cannot be believed because they are governed by a different law of consciousness, alien to humility, alien to unity, nobility and love of neighbor. After all, a pompous one will not be trusted. The proud will deceive and hurt. What has happened to the angels? Sometimes even a paralytic needs to be kicked to make him feel more spiritual. Padre Pio's words. 1666. Everything about the church, the liturgy, chasubles, stoles, and all those other rituals, incense, kosher food, drinking alcohol, everything was live, copied from the highest elites of the pharaohs. This is how they lived. They enjoyed liturgies, chalices, etc. The church knows this but doesn't even want to talk about it. Is this bad or good? Instead, they cut down the Slavic culture. They destroyed everything in honor of the pharaohs, and their lifestyle later transferred to the Catholic priesthood. This is the truth. Historians know this and are silent. They are silent about what was before Mieszko in these areas. The church destroyed everything. 1667. Although you trust, you tremble for the salvation and health of the body, for the fate of tomorrow. Fact, you have no certainty of tomorrow, so you fear. Nevertheless, trust in God. When you pray, He will help you in your troubles. Our biggest trouble was born in this earthly purgatory. We have to live to the end in suffering. No one can divine our body, make it eternally young and volatile. This we have already lost. We decided this ourselves, that we want mortal bodies, so God cannot change our fundamental decisions. He would have to put us to death and move us to heaven. And that's not what anyone on earth wants. We prefer to live, suffer, and die as we get, and from whom we get. What madness! Everything born must die, Padre Pio's words. Well, that's one problem we already have over. 1668. The Old Testament for Jews. This is their election program for generations. A collection of fables and rumors, some miscellaneous knowledge copied from Sumer. They were even so brazen that they rewrote almost word for word the story of Noah about the ark. The difference was that in Sumer there was a house and another name, and here the ark. To this day they are still riding on this story of the flood. To this day their ST electoral program still works all over the world. Judaism rules the whole world, especially in the central bank of the USA. For them the most important thing is law, medicine, judiciary, art, media. And they marry their women to influential people from various countries to spread their anointing in them as well. There they embed their chosen ones to spread uproar in the world. Liberalism, atheism, homo, you don't know, and all sorts of foolishness that makes life difficult for people on the planet. That's why Padre Pio told me the Old Testament should have been forgotten long ago. 20 years ago about Poland and those in power in it, he replied, all the time the Jew commune is in power. Poles aside, and I guess it's still like that today. They are afraid of good and strong Leshites. Someday we will regain Poland, and patriotism will become true love, not rituals and immoral views. 1669. Jesus, the ideal man, a signpost for angels caught up in the pettiness of life in the galaxies, on the planets. It was said of him, he passed through the earth doing good. I would add that he passed through many earth-like planets and on them. He called for great love. This is what Fula Horak told me. 1670. On earth, everyone has at least one certain enemy. It is our body. The battle with it goes on all our lives, and it takes grace to endure it. Few people pray for this grace. But on the other hand, if you can't love your body, you won't be able to love your soul. The direction runs through the body to the soul. The body is such a donkey that needs to be pushed forward all the time. Padre Pio's words. 1671. I once asked Padre Pio about the history of Marilyn Monroe. Where is she after so many years? He replied, she has been in heaven for a long time because she loved very much. 1672. God knows how to and likes to joke, but let's not judge again that he made us live on this beautiful and at the same time poor earth for the sake of a joke. This is a higher philosophy of being. God did not create just anything. Is a crashed and limited Windows or Android the work of God? It is a human invention. The same is true of this world compromising all angelic scientists. It is their invention, DNA and RNA. This is pure science of fallen angels. There is nothing to be happy about. The fruit of their science is constant suffering, assassinations, wars, disasters, and horrible death. Remember, the universe is a product of science, just like computers. The work called universes is the lowest level of knowledge and science imaginable. It is necessary to see heaven. One will have a comparison. Let us finally remember how it was in the original, and not duplicate scientific standards and patents for destruction and death. 1673. There are only two prayers, the Our Father and the Hail Mary, which come not from earth, but from the higher realms. So said Padre Pio. They can be recited at least once a day to keep in mind the direction we should take as aliens and angels. After all, humans, that is, souls after serious transitions before we became material beings. These two prayers are completely sufficient to lead us to heaven. One was taught by Jesus, the other was uttered by Archangel Gabriel to the beautiful angel from heaven, born on earth Mary. Gabriel also descended to me and also used the words, "I herald to you." I remember that's what he said. I was surprised. 1674. Not every angel from heaven endures life on earth. Perseverance with ideals is one of the most important qualities of life. 1675. Before a person becomes divinely loving, there is much he still needs to clear from human consciousness. First of all, he should learn to think beyond neurons and brain. To use a good heart. 1676. What most externalizes our inner soul in this world? An intelligent body endowed with sensitive senses. They are a reflection of the soul. That's why everyone wants to look beautiful, do good to please others. The body will grace, tune and strut to show the heat of its soul. All the parades of love, romance and courtship, this is what they show. It is worth rethinking this and not to be bitter, but on the contrary, to see in externals the manifestation of an intelligent and always sensitive to the delight of love, the soul. The condemnation of the body is related to the adulteration of the soul and religious manipulation, created for the purposes of submission. The wealth of the churches, wealth and power, religions, are the sad side of life on this planet. Besides, not only on this one, God, yes, but religions are a product of ego and mind for the needs of mainly power. The Roman Empire fell, and everything was taken over by the church, including rights and gods slightly modified. Power passed into the hands of bishops and cardinals, courts, and all institutions. Is this not an exaggeration? Is this what Jesus wanted? Later it changed, but not much. Think it all through rising in his mysteries, where the environment of unity has no end, fully capable of love. We dare to think of eternal happiness where love becomes a goddess. There is beauty in possibility and art in irrationality. Discovering this hope revives the dead. At the beginning of analysis, reason stubbornly obstructs, but in the intensity of spirit, the concept transforms into taste, and matter seen with the eye of heart acquires the sphere of divinization, and yet all that passes by. The power of reality is the beginning of eternal life. 1677. You are a needle in a haystack, a kind soul, the sweetest in the world. No one will find you. Too much of this hay is here. Who will dig you out of these millions of blades of unnecessary? Let yourself be found. Love the ideal and speak absurdities from happiness. Adore ignorance. Please, love the journey of knowing you are lost soul, but you are. 1678. Does our love have shortcomings? Of course, and it's huge. If it did not have it, we would never have been born here. The main reason for suffering and bad living conditions on various planets is lack of love, misunderstanding, pride. Earth is an expression of precisely the lack of love. Everyone fights with everyone. To achieve wide love for everyone and get out of the cosmos to heaven is not easy. Only in heaven there is perfect love, freedom, enchantment. And there is nothing to look for love in the heavens poisoned by suffering and pride, because we won't find it here. We only have glimpses that somewhere this true love surely exists. Love for one person is a partial love. True love expresses most when we love all souls equally as God, who is love itself, does. You have to be for everyone, is what Padre Pio told me. He often emphasized that you must love everyone equally. 1679. Life here is a game of consolation. 1680. Some imperfections can be worked out in the lower layer of heaven, but already heaven. If one feels that one has not yet completed everything here, The most important thing is to get to heaven, not to be stuck in this kolkhoz empire, the material cosmos. 1681. Although we live because of God, we move because of Him. The entire fallen cosmos exists because of His strength and wisdom. God cannot be found here. There is no such possibility. We are cut off from the original cosmos. You can only meet His fallen children and the unoriginal cosmos created by angels, what went beyond heaven in ancient times. You have to seek the true heaven on your own, not even through no fault of your own. Do you know anything about it? Even though I would explain a lot to you, you still wouldn't understand much for now. That's what Padre Pio told me back at the beginning of the talks. Then he added, God has given you such a head this time to know great things. Well, and I'm trying to comprehend something. But he stipulated, you will follow the natural way to God, with mind and heart, with spirit and body, one all at once. 1682. God lives in such luxury that those not dressed in the right clothes are not able to reign in His palaces. For now, no, heaven is unattainable for us at the moment. We have to try very hard to love everyone, so that after death it becomes available to us. 1683. Do not philosophize too much. Empty words, nor creative and pretty sentences do not save. On the contrary, they blur our soul, embrace you in the heart. You, Lord, want to say that perfection can be achieved through total surrender to your love. Thou wilt say that this can be done at once without searching for ways or methods. Thou wouldst like to have people who, without hesitation, would immediately accept Thee into their hearts. Such an immediate principle allows you to overcome the greatest difficulties. There is no need to look at the fruits of your labor, because by giving ourselves to you, we put everything into your hands. This love is filled with. 1684. The source of the light is far away from us, yet we walk in this light, we move, and through it we see other people. This is also the case between us and God. He is far from us, but at the same time we walk in Him and move thanks to the omnipresent power emanating from Him, which in no way takes away anyone's reason or freedom. However, in the fallen worlds, our reason and vision have been limited. The DNA structure and all the other energies of the body effectively block cognition. The senses blind us to the truth of the original world. The words of Padre Pio. We see only this one. Full vision with the senses of the original body is only available in heaven. So it is necessary to enter there. We are on a road full of bumps and oblivion. Nevertheless, we must go there, where our eternal life is. 1685. The body is our cap of oblivion, deliberately manufactured by funny engineers, space medics. With the body, they squeezed our souls. And since then, we know nothing about life. It's very hard to know anything except with our eyes, hearing, and pseudo-intellect. Practically nothing. We live in complete darkness. Despite the huge libraries that exist on the planet, we know little and see nothing, although our eyes are open and our mind receptive. One further, nothing of this. They have eyes and do not know. They have ears and do not hear. These are the words of Jesus. 1686. There will be great changes in the world. A real spiritual revolution. The time is coming. The bell has been rung. We will hear it soon enough. Poland is the most important thing on our planet right now. The Lechites, the Slavs, the Poles, they have kept the values within themselves. In addition, special souls, great intelligences are being born in it now. They will show us the best way to the prosperity of the soul. 1687. God, through the fallen angels created nature, speaks directly to us in a mystical way. However, He Himself dwells in an inaccessible light. We have no contact with God. No one can hear Him, see Him, or speak to Him directly. We console ourselves by believing that God cares and remembers us. Nevertheless, this is true. He remembers us like a mother remembers her children. But one day we stomped our foot. We walked away. And in spite of this, He gave the first hand, the words of Padre Pio, because mother and father cannot do otherwise. On earth God no one has ever seen, neither have I. Padre Pio's words. 1688. If we guide our deliberations well, making all sorts of comparisons, we will find that nature itself will give us a lot of knowledge about the Lord God. However, no one completes such knowledge, at least it is not done in common social circles, which unfortunately impoverishes people's knowledge of God very much. On the other hand, another conceptual thinking is triggered, an arrogant one, where not a word is said about God. This is what the false social issue of the meaning of life is all about. Evil and good must be defined, based on cause and effect today, and once upon a time at the beginning of time. Difficult? Of course it's difficult. That's why we still need faith and mysticism, because knowledge has not yet proven itself in this area. It has too narrow a scope of recognition of spiritual atoms. 1689. Spiritual research is always carried out by angels, humans, and other races of the cosmos. Every soul after the fall must be a philosopher from the compulsion of the nature into which it fell. Like a snare. So it must wonder about life and its meaning. It must believe or be atheistic or indifferent to everything. Any attitude will eventually lead to God anyway. God will certainly not be seen by anyone in this world. So everyone has to strain to get to Him on their own, no matter what they do or what path they take. Let's see. Nature, in order to function, must be predatory, eating itself, milling bodies, spreading death around. God is not the God of death, but of eternity. And what happens to us? Birth and death. That's why everyone has to philosophize in order to be able to explain this conundrum to themselves, disregarding any authorities. Because they too know nothing and also die. Respect is due to Jesus, because He knew how to think these things through for Himself. And He showed the direction with a finger upward beyond these worlds. 1690. Everyone needs to arouse comparative scientific thought. Not a single drug hits the disease. Every human drug attacks the whole body. Drugs for high blood pressure, for example, should be banned. Pressure can be regulated by natural means, such as ground eggshells in a coffee grinder. Besides, just ask our great-grandmothers how they treated themselves, how they ate. Bad nutrition is always to blame, especially that American, French, German food that has been languishing on our shelves for 25 years. 1691. Ultimately, God is the only force that sustains all fallen life and life in the heavens. God is the perpetrator of everything, as He provides free energy to souls. They decide what they want to do. So, it is necessary to start seriously believing what He tells us through philosophical and mystical inspirations. All power and knowledge on any subject is contained in God. Whoever believes in Him can achieve all this in Him. One must think and analyze effects and causes. But let's not suspect God that He seemingly created evil. No. He gave free will to everyone in heaven to be independent creators of their own personal heaven. Some went too far and created a creature, a material cosmos, in which we now live. We have become entangled. It is necessary to understand this and flee from here to the ancient palaces in heaven. There, it is only safe. Jesus similarly suggested, safety in space will not be found. Already in the next generation, there will be large meteorites hitting the Earth. It will become dangerous. You will not live to see it. Padre Pio's words. 1692. What we get to know and then describe makes a lot of sense. Perhaps we don't recognize this yet. The most productive in cognition are uneducated and simple people. They know the most. They don't write. They don't even communicate their experiences, because they can't. Intellect is a delusion. This is what the main cosmic manipulation is about. The force of evil is the intellect, which is increasingly aggressive and bloodthirsty. The false ego is based on intellect mainly. That's why you need to use thoughts, chemical, and mathematical formulas with caution, because with them you can kill both the body and scratch the soul consciousness. In words is the most powerful power in all change. Sometimes one sentence can save an entire country, and other times the opposite, destroy it mentally and economically. Through one man an entire nation can fall, the words of Padre Pio. Such is the power of power. 1693. Desires are not an invention of fate or cosmic dust, or politicians, or scientists, explorers, or psychologists. The soul desires, and it comes directly from God. But desires changed somewhat when we came out of heaven. So much has changed that we can't remember what it was like in heaven. The manipulation of the death policy of all the angelic civilizations in the cosmos has done its job. They corrupted our freedom and desires. It is only romanticism and mysticism that somewhat restores to us the splendor of heaven. It is worth going in this direction. It is our hope for the future. 1694. Happiness is the order of God. Here we have just the seed of this eternal game. In the cosmos, happiness is unsuccessful, and all beings who have left heaven are already coming to that. The more suffering we experience, the more clearly we see it. The faster our bodies fail and age, the more on this subject we get. Suffering and passing time can be used very meticulously to remember the eternal heaven and to long for Him. Longing, everyone will move to heaven. One does not even have to do anything. It is enough to yearn, to want. Longing is a higher form of prayer to God. 1695. In the search for happiness, our thoughts run in all directions. They pierce death and birth, consciousness and subconsciousness, to reach finally for the heart of God dwelling within us. Sometimes it takes 1,000,000 years to find the heart of God. Your harvest, Lord, you sow not for one day a seed, but for times forever. You sow in spite of the hail of sin, of turmoil and wars, in the darkness, in the sunshine, and through the mists eternal is thy love. O Lord, with tormented sweat, thy harvest brought forth, thy wisdom is not silent, it is beyond measure. We shall see it when syntheses flee the mists, when death and the grave life revive, when the abyss begins to speak and yearn, when the spirits tormented by yesterday's day begin to return with sorrow to the bosom of divinity. Already the vision of ascension thrills everyone. Already the duration of time has given birth to a word of hope. If you tell the world what is to come, resurrection from eternal silence will come. No longer will the depths dry up, for alone like a ray shines the Spirit in holy brightness. Thoughts feel your tears in your eyes like lakes. You send greetings above the abysses of darkness. I rush on my soul to the lands of happiness. I am ruled by an imperishable feeling for you, Lord. Sow your seed forever. 1696. In this life there will always be something in the way, so spiritual people think very highly of earthly matters, knowing that they give little to the soul that desires more. Most often, when a soul engages with its whole self in the transient world, it wastes another life. The beauty of this world attracts souls, luring them to this pseudo-heaven. Without reflection and analysis of life, we will not leap into a higher world. Angels of our kind will convince us right after death that life on the planets is a special grace given from God, which of course is not true. We allow ourselves to be convinced, and we are born again. Freedom also exists after death, and karma has nothing to say here. The freedom and consciousness of the soul decides the turn of our life, even after the death of the body. What we want, we have. 1697. We don't know everything about life, through our own ancient fault, of course, because that's how we decided in the realm of freedom. So mistakes are born, and from mistakes suffering. From suffering's resignation, and from it, it is a step to despair and hatred. So it takes great vigilance to stay true to the idea of eternal happiness, the idea of loving our neighbor, trusting God, who does not want to violate our sovereignty and freedom in any form. The laws of galaxies, shaken energy, imperfect clothing of the soul, are purely a matter of our choice, not the will of God. He has offered no such thing to anyone. 1698. Everyone wants to be happy and delightful. All angels are drawn to this happiness. It is a matter of the spirit. If we sit our longings and desires in God, they will all be fulfilled, every iota. Fairy tales are yet to come. 1699. In every thesis there are a number of undiscovered elements. Therefore, as long as the material world exists, science and technology will be subject to processes of improvement and various modernization. No one can claim to have learned the truth. Hypothetically, yes, due to the fact that he believes in God, who is omniscient. Even in heaven, angels do not know everything, let alone mortal man. Padre Pio's words. 1700. Man has a great sense of independence within himself. It is a sacred sense, but there is also an adverse phenomenon. It is a misinterpreted independence, where pride and ruthless self-sufficiency are its driving force. The fruit can be imposition, persuasion only of own reasons, lack of mercy in the heart, unwillingness to accept the qualities of others. 1701. Reality ends with serious illness or death. The temporal world is no longer important. The dream of eternity begins. 1702. It will not sound exaggerated to say that it is necessary to seek true joy in true love. Anything beyond that will not satisfy the soul. True love can be had constantly and for everything. However, this truthfulness must be constantly sought. Nothing here is given permanently. It plays out as if blind man's buff, but this is what salvation is all about, acquiring love and spiritual knowledge. In the work of laws, amendment of laws still limping and incompetent which have spawned degenerate human thought is in the level of correlation of revival, but nevertheless suggests a bad ratio of balanced fate for personal sanity. Contradictions surrounded by peculiar allure enjoy the favor of affectionate connection. However, they do not come to the study of the widths of possibilities in peace. On the contrary, with rage and exasperation, they violate the resistance of true thought. We know that strong is the example of gluttony from the injuries caused by the corrosion of dearest self-love categories of knowledge of the spirit of word riches. Allow to read the thundering arguments, how we seek our benefit, storehouses of benefits, especially financial circulate in clay vessels, promoting the inhabitants of the globe into social positions without knowing the deepest laws. 1703. There is no objective truth on earth, only subjective truth. That's why we judge and quarrel over words, thoughts, and inspirations. If there were objective truth on earth, no one would be offended or reproached. Views prove that there is no objective truth in the galaxy. Rationales won't help us anything. What if you have your selective rationale for personal purposes bred? You get angry for your environmentally formed rationale. Is it worth it? It's not worth it. One must learn to see the good, the opposition in the rulers, and the rulers in the opposition. You can't be a total opposition, and you can't be a dictator. This is obvious. Love should unite everyone, but love is the hardest thing to do. This is what Jesus came to say and teach it for. He proposed and argued, love your enemies. And I fully agree with this statement. And so what if you are right? Do what you are told, but think your own way. Padre Pio's words. 1704. Man is not satisfied with himself, so he resents others and lash out at them. He wants to set them up, change their views, and even sometimes beat them up. Sometimes a fist clenches you, however, open your hand. Padre Pio's words. 1705. Religion kills people, as do politics and secularism. They are no different, because we are their expressions. If there is something wrong, it is our product of ignorance. In the galaxy, it is impossible to separate the soul from the flawed body, on which the soul mentally relies. Politics, spirituality, cooking soup, etc. are activities of the soul consciousness. It is impossible to separate these. The state, the nation, NATO, or other structures, economic, finally wars, are expressions of our thoughts, the soul. Everything we do, what we want, how we behave, what we wear, and who we like, is an expression of our soul. The church, however much it may wish otherwise, will always be political. In heaven, these problems no longer exist. Although until the last angel alien returns to heaven, there are military forces that protect the entrances to the gates of heaven, so that cosmic devilish still civilizations do not get in there and mess up. Saint Michael, the archangel, is one of the military leaders, which helps people and protects heaven from assaults. Every day he looks after the earth, but does not interfere, because we do not threaten the community of heaven with our abilities. Other more capable civilizations than us, but angry civilizations, make such attempts. When the universe ends and everyone is in heaven, the armies will no longer be needed, nor will any of heaven's spiritual, salutary policies. There will be only love, fairyland, and delight. without the slightest concern or fear. 1706. Even charitable selflessness can become part of the problems of spiritual limitations. Those who have been reborn inwardly and have become wiser in their spiritual life cannot engage in only external activities. It is better to quietly continue their spiritual activities. Indifferent people, feeling contempt for spiritual matters, are unable to appreciate mental activities done in God consciousness. Nothing needs to be done, just think and feel. This saves. Deed is the lowest vibration. 1707. The fact that Christ became God, it did not depend on God, but on the declining Roman Empire, which had gods to choose from to color, and had to make Christ the one God in order to maintain its power and transfer it to the people in the form of a new religious sect. It's simple. History tells the story. 1708. In the beginning, Padre Pio always explained to me as the church teaches, Christ is God. Years later, he changed this explanation, and at the end he told me, someday you will know who Christ really was. Today I already know. Only Catholics consider him to be God. Islam and other religions only as a prophet and an angel. He lived on many planets. 1709. All that I write about, John Paul II knew, because he also had conversations with Padre Pio. But he chose to remain silent. He probably would have been in huge trouble because of it. I am courageous. Even Saint Michael the Archangel, when he came to me, said, "You are a brave knight. And as a gift, I bring you 7 swords. I thought, but there will be a scramble. 7 swords. Ha! Because of this courage, I also got in trouble, but I never gave up." John Paul went soft, like many others who talked to Padre Pio, but he had the merit. He made Pio a saint. When I asked Padre Pio about it, he said, "I didn't care about it at all," and smiled. John Paul II preached folkly his message. This did not satisfy me. I complained to Padre Pio about it, and the father replied, "If you were the Pope, you would speak differently." He certainly would have. 1710. The destiny of every person is to find true happiness. There is no other goal. All others are suffering themselves. In other words, the angels of what once came out of heaven, i.e. us, are born on various earths in order to find the eternal kingdom of heaven, despite the limitations. Consequently, spiritual man takes all the risks to approach atheists, ignoramuses, blasphemers, drunks, politicians, religious people, scientists, doctors, philosophers, trying to engage them in spiritual work. This work is absolutely necessary for human beings. The science of unification, the science of spiritual search is very important. The most important. Because it can happen. And when you get used to the beauty and attractions of this material world, even with cries, you will not be drawn away from it. And after death it will again seem to you that the cosmos is a paradise, despite the fact that death and wars alone reign in it. That's why love and pleasure are so important, seeking it more and more magnificently, until it leads to the eternal heaven. Without reflective pleasure and love from the heart, it is impossible to follow the correct path to eternal life. Without reflection and thought, we will always return to the same place after death where we were before. Only the conditions of suffering will change. 1711. The most important teaching of the world should always be focused on love and the benefits that flow from it. That is, on ultimately knowing and tasting God. One can give oneself completely to God by working on oneself and adopting a very tolerant attitude toward those who think differently. However, the commandment of love does not exempt one from a certain kind of discipline. People of addicted heart to the world untested faith resist cognition. The way to perfect oneself in knowing God is difficult, but nevertheless necessary. Man cannot be happy until he submits to the fullness of existence. There is no other alternative. The world of human sensations and impressions, even very positive ones, cannot replace God and His magnificent heaven. Only He can fill our hearts with all the longed-for pleasure and joy we most deeply need. After all, it is He who has inscribed in our souls spiritual spasms and orgasms, transmitted even to the body. Saint Teresa of Avila, my protector of the mind, wrote, "Sisters, take care of yourselves during meditation, for the body can also experience pleasure." Our independent consciousness, the feelings of love we have within us, are God's work, not a suffering nature. I just want love, like a string tightened. You sound in my thoughts, like a flower never touched. You are caressed by my affection. I see your charming smiles, inconceivable melodies I hear in your eyes. I myself an incomprehensible feeling. Holy pleasure clothes us alone, nourishes and sings poetry. This from heaven power, here pure pampered, with a mother's hand woven. I thirst for love, not for low motives. Sounds are incorporeal beyond the world. Colorful feelings are a well. I see a new world in you. Behold the divine reflection cast into eternity. Suns most beautiful in your pupils burn. Shall I be blinded? No. Dazzle only they can. Infinite is the harmony of all eternal love. You don't need anything in it. You only want 1712. All of our views and skills indicate that our internal constitution is service. Whether we grow from the root of subjectivism or the root of objectivism. This is independent of currency, wealth, or poverty. Our subconscious attitude is the desire to serve. Some want to serve for personal gain, so that they can benefit from the service of others, while others serve for the sake of good morals. And still others are forced into this service by laws. But even so, even though our concept is to serve, and sometimes we do it well, we are still not entirely satisfied with it. The aliens have decided to serve them. They surprised us with their technology, and we succumbed. Devotion to God, that's all that matters. 1713. Nothing comes easy in life. We bear huge burdens and carry various responsibilities, and not everything works out. In our economic, social, educational, political, even religious development, there is frustration, culpable or not. But we should elevate ourselves above dualism and privatism, and even above altruism and service. This is not a simple undertaking. Jesus did not promise golden mountains right away. Rest assured, we will achieve everything, but it takes analysis and calmness. To criticize and forgive, have sharp vision, Padre Pio's words. Sometimes get annoyed and be merciful. To bring peace while holding a sword. This is how the world is structurally designed by the losers of the cosmos. We have to be strong. We can do it. Simple as doves and agile as snakes. 1714. Materialist scientists, politicians, take it for granted that only through class struggle can justice and healthy patriotism be realized. There is no more distorted view. Justice by itself excludes any struggle, moral or class or ethnic violence. On the contrary, she is submission, mercy, forbearance and tolerance. Only materialistic justice is absolute, because it is based not on love, but on a mathematical law of caduceus, invented by selfishness. There are great subtleties in great misunderstandings and mistakes. A lie can sometimes be very precise in its logic. He who sees this will know God faster. Jesus, strive forward for the kingdom of God and for his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. 1715. For selfish purposes one can even use faith in God, but this faith has no power. 1716. The desire for holiness must be pure and from the heart. It is generally paid with suffering, because on earth and the cosmos, one cannot do without suffering. Nature itself causes suffering, and man duplicates it. Therefore, we must be holy in suffering. Jesus and Mary also felt suffering, and they were emissaries from heaven, given to change religious ideology. They wanted to free the nation from religious terror, and they succeeded. The idea of the love of Jesus and his mom spread throughout the world. History has messed up a lot with this holy family, but it's still good. You can always read the thoughts of Jesus, especially those not written down, not forged by the priests. 1717. There are different levels of perception of phenomena in the world. As long as it has existed, no one has so far managed to get a unified view of the complex structure of the world. Mystery still applies. But Padre Pio, for example, knew the mysteries of matter. He bilocated himself. He knew all the languages without learning them. However, one can, but he added, mankind does not remember the beginnings. 1718. Love thinks differently. She is crazy enough not to look at loss. An example is Jesus on the cross, accepting death in the name of love for man. Today it is the case that in the name of apparent love, one fights against love. The main culprit, of course, is ignorance of the meaning of life's workings. The main tendency of the false knowledge that believers and atheists have is to adapt to all levels of transformations taking place in the world, in social and cultural life. Of course, uncritically, blindly, according to the manifestations and needs of the world. The state of totalitarian immorality, which is driven by freedom and the power of modern democracy, aggression, mental and emotional ignorance, is a disaster for any soul that learns this kind of image of reality very easily. And the world of goodness and love is quite different. 1719. Any knowledge requires interpretation. In addition to interpretation, information is required as to what effects it may have. Human knowledge, cosmic knowledge, it is terribly confusing and constantly modified, changed. Often used to produce poisons against the man who produced this knowledge. Strange are the connections between knowledge and man. At your feet, Lord, to your feet. I tumble every day somewhere in the unknown distance. I want to break away. I want to disappear. I want to lean towards your depths, Lord, like a drop dissolve in you, Lord. I want to cease to exist and yet live for you. I admire your creative vastness, but even this is futile in the face of my ignorance. We move in you, Lord. We breathe you, and yet you yourself live in an inaccessible light. What holds you back, Lord, from filling me? What holds back from filling my longings and expectations? My being perishes without you. I sail often through the lands of memories, but it is superfluous if I have you close to me. However, my spirit tired by various forms and thoughts tormented, I wait. 1720. There is no doubt that the activity of love performing good for all in the name of love is better than all the mechanisms of psychology, parapsychology, and human justice. Love only tells the story of goodness regardless of difficulties. Human egocentric justice demands the typical thing, to have, regardless of the consequences, moral and material goods resulting from geographical, historical, religious, social, political conditions. And this is not fair. Some change in thinking for the future would be helpful. In the name of love, brotherhood of nations. Something close to that. 1721. Human mental penetrations deal with virtually all areas of life. This is not to say that having learned through effort and finding various regularities, one will learn something for the soul. The human mind entangled in patents, writing, politics, career, leadership, the fun called bossiness and other matters, even apparent religious activities, is not at all better than insects, which also learn and struggle in their own way. They sleep, eat, and reproduce like humans. For insects, lifespan closes in hours or days, in humans in years. The bodily predispositions of insects and animals are somewhat different from humans. But humans do not inquire into their spiritual laws, and thus are no different from a monkey, for example. The monkey jumps trees, while we create, for example, philosophy faculties, on which we also jump like stupid, not knowing on which branch of philosophy we will find better fruit. This is true in other fields as well. Humility and even deeper observations would be useful to a person. 1722. To reassure, John Paul II is in heaven. Cardinal Wyszynski similarly. Cardinal Wyszynski missed a month after his death because there was some pride there, so he suffered in another purgatory. I would add that Cardinal Wyszynski also spoke with Padre Pio in Krakow. Padre Pio told me, when John Paul was still alive and already elderly, he already has direct contact with the hereafter. That's literally what Padre Pio told me. 1723. If you manage during the day for once to be logically tolerant, for once not to say no to someone, this will be your great satisfaction and victory. For once to listen to the opposition to yourself, having a quietly coiled opinion, you will show kindness and understanding for the beliefs of others. This will be your great spiritual success. Think in your own way and do in your own way, but listen to everyone. Padre Pio's words to me. And what if you learn something extra? 1724. All efforts must be focused in this direction to become love. The parties have no such goals. Therefore, they must be criticized for power struggles and pure philosophical and practical materialism. Being a Catholic, one can be the biggest materialist in the world. Mafias operate that way, even in the Vatican. Spiritual wealth does not conflict with technology and politics, because a politician is a living soul and feels like everyone else. But he generally goes the wrong way. Where is the spirit of Francis of Assisi? Far behind. And yet it is possible to have a lot and have a heartfelt spirit for every person, loving like us in the end. 1725. The worlds overlap, but we don't see it. We can't see the atom or its molecules. This world obscures another. Matter obscures the spiritual world. Even the tiniest particles of light are a huge blockade against the real, spiritual, eternal world. The senses obscure vision. Padre Pio's words, 1726. It turns out that selfish people grow up for only one reason. That reason is to disregard spiritual education. This entails negative consequences. We wish people peace, but in this peace there is a lot of loneliness and unfriendliness. So what to say about schools, community centers, where spiritual work cannot even be thought of? As it seems, no one foresaw that the lack of spirituality would bring such terrible consequences. It was thought that cultural and technical progress would be enough, that the thought of simply satisfying human needs would bring out the best nectar in man. They were mistaken. This mistake is indescribable in its consequences. Because of it, it has resulted in billions of deaths. The lack of spirituality, or in other words, the deficiency of love, has released enormous negative energies. What a huge mistake of a civilization that rejected mysticism, spirituality, divine laws with contempt. What's more, this dangerous game is still practiced and in highly industrialized and democratic countries. Reform correct vision of love is possible when we adorn our experiences with affection for other healings. The world is solely a problem of forming true love. It is common to criticize the privileges of inadequate systems. Lord, let us ask, from where and to where are the failed laws flowing? Well, they flow from the lack of adequate knowledge of justice and love. No one discusses what to do to make things better, and if I discuss it is without love, without eschatology. The condition for enjoying the benefits of goodness on earth is undoubtedly sincere, pure, and frequent reform, dictated by the common good. Faith and reform go hand in hand, love its flavor. 1727. Poland will only free itself from Russia when China threatens them from behind. Padre Pio's words. Lech Walesa is talking out of turn today. He overthrew the Olszewski government and doesn't know what to do now. He was carried away by pride. Padre Pio's words from those days. And he further added, on our knees we will regain our freedom after the overthrow of the Olszewski government. Padre Pio's words. 1728. Jealousy in heaven does not exist. She is the result of bad habits and ignorance in the galaxy's alternative heavens, created in opposition to God. Jealousy appears only in material limitations. Lack of full knowledge causes envy and correctness towards stupidity, especially the stupidity of journalists and politicians, who have the power to form opinions and influence our decisions. So one must be able to think for oneself, necessarily. You can't live the lives of others and be an extension of them. Padre Pio's words. Everyone is responsible for their own wants and moods. 1729. It is the thoughts that are the actions. It is the feelings that are the actions and the reason for everything. It's not the hands, not the physics that are important, but what comes out of the inside. The inside can wing us or plunge us. The body has nothing to do with it. Jesus presented this problem long ago. What the hands can do? Almost nothing. Before the movement of the hand comes, first there is the willingness to move it. And this willingness is the essence. It is the most important love and responsibility. One can reproach others for mistakes, wrongdoing, being politically wrong, due to darkening of the mind. But everyone should be treated equally. Do not allow yourself to hate anyone. Because everyone is a child of God, Hitler and Stalin and others, people from one party or another. If someone is leading or has led the nation's affairs badly, he should be reproved so that he will repent. This does not mean a lack of love. On the contrary, they should still be grateful to us for being admonished and criticized. Even the early Christians had this model of behavior, admonishing and showing sins. One cannot be tolerant without boundaries towards people. Otherwise, you would have to let the worst criminals go free. And that would mean fear and panic. And what do politicians who sign documents for various poisons do, and then society gets sick? It is necessary to criticize and admonish such to call for conversion. 1730. The quest for perfection existed hundreds of thousands of years earlier on this poor earth, lost in space, hovering at the very end of the Milky Way. This aspiration existed before the unique angel from heaven, Jesus, came down here. Christ, who completed the knowledge of perfection. He paid particular attention to selfless love. 1731. All religions in their current state are worth a pound of flesh. Without wars and bloody slaughters, there would be no Islam or Christianity. Why don't we remember this and publicize this fact? Political correctness forbids it. Salvation is something else entirely. It is a new life, free, eternal in love, and not in the soul-crushing terror of Jewish or other religious laws. Jewish priests, politicians had thousands of such laws in the first place to control the dark population. Jesus overturned all laws to the Jews. He paid the highest price. In the end, of course, they made him a sacrifice, as was done on Jewish altars. They were constantly there killing and burning animals. The apostles were Jews. They wanted change, but they slaughtered almost all of them. So we have a reminder of the killing of the Jewish sacrifice, Jesus, at every church service in honor of the Jewish Old Testament gods. Or rather, after modifications, God, going further, even God in three persons. This is already a scam of the ages. Anyone who opposed it was immediately torn apart, burned, or impaled. When will we finally wise up? Oh, a great reform awaits Catholicism, a very great one. It is already beginning. 1732. In noble love there is no shadow of imperfection, because in it there is all hospitality, kindness, affection, charm, romance. And you don't need any religion for this, just your own soul created by God. Religions manipulate and make us still pay for it with work or money. I understand that people like churches, but Jesus was talking about something else entirely. The inner church. The good heart, and not this church built of cold brick. That's not the church Jesus had in mind. Francis of Assisi understood it similarly. But his writings were also manipulated. He wrote the rules at the dictates of others. He was pained by this, so in the end he renounced the whole order, took off his habit, and died naked like Jesus. He wanted nothing to do with this world of religious and ecclesiastical falsehood. 1733. Lack of interest in forms and beauty makes a person exhausted and mentally tormented. One needs to know the world in order to be able to long for a higher one. The soul needs the world, preferably the heavenly land, right away. But one must unfortunately wait. 1734. If someone says that the animal does not think, then he knows little. The animal also thinks and loves, but in the way of its mental structure. 1735. Any way you look at it, Christianity is a Jewish worldview concept. It is untrue that salvation did not come before. This is a lie of the sects that forcibly ruled over a peaceful people. Thousands of years of Slavism far surpasses the concepts of the now traditional salvation. It far surpasses the adulterated Bible. There are even Slavic Vedas. Slavs were exterminated, their signs, symbols, until they were forgotten. This was done by the political, ideological, in large part, Jewish state church. Jesus, although he was Jewish in body, nevertheless preached Slavic ideas. He was an angelic universal soul. But the Christian sect, as it was called in the beginning, changed almost all the words of the great philosopher, Jesus. They deceived everyone. Let the church admit it. It will do itself a good service. Besides, the cosmos has existed for billions of years, civilizations in it have also lasted for billions of years. And suddenly a Jewish salvation popped out of a box. That's not so. Salvation existed from the beginning, as soon as the angels came out on their own from heaven. Jesus accelerated it with his knowledge of it. God was the first to reach out his hand for consent right at the very beginning. Padre Pio's words. And since then, return or salvation has been possible. Jesus condemned the Jewish religion, which is why he died. He condemned all religions and did not establish any himself. He didn't even build a single shrine. He only commanded his friends to talk about love and eternal life, because he knew that on humility and goodness lies salvation. Jesus, the angel from heaven, was genetically born to the world's worst nation. He wanted to warn it against pride and cosmic condemnation. But they did not yield, they would not listen. So he turned with his proposal to all people of good, will not to give up and seek the eternal kingdom. Although he knew well that other nations do not need him, because they are doing quite well in saving themselves. Around the considerations of nature above indefinite seem ordinary conclusions, dignified and pure above words, and they sometimes force the existence of evil life eludes maturation, and before man hungers for his self. Convenient surroundings like a natural joy by different measures change the degrees of cognition to the drudgery of intellectual deliberation relationships. Elude broken nature's more and more appearances. Doubt creeps in. Is there true rigor of cognition? Are there mysteries? But there are truths which neither by calculus of probability can be fathomed. Faced with one and the other treatments are many, but each must cry out for what awaits. Most love is still not loved. Why? 1736. From the beginning by divine nature we are angels. Today already in a material body after a long journey through the cosmos. Mutations, evolutions, etc. Transforming into different forms on different planets. Today as a human being, we have a specific degree of freedom due to the limitations of the impenetrability of the body in matter. In such limited freedom of the body, the soul has to do everything to help find love, goodness, and eternity within itself. The genetic system of the body, the system of chemical glands and bioelectric nervous systems, is a colossal barrier to the search for these great and most important matters of existence. But it must be overcome. The senses veil the soul. Padre Pio's words. 1737. Freedom is a contract between God and the soul. God trusts the soul to do its best not to use this freedom for evil purposes. And God promises in return the gift of eternal life and love. But the opposite happened. Freedom preserved, and evil in the world up to the armpits. It's the same all over the cosmos, as everyone has the same soul, but in different clothes expressed. Those who suffer and die today show with these how the soul has wandered hen far from God. It is time to return from the depths of transient matter. 1738. Everyone is experienced by the vicissitudes of life, even non-believers. Everyone is drawn by God to himself. He does it out of the need of his heart and compassion for his children, angels, people who have posed for themselves in the cosmos. And mostly they suffer because of it. God has a plan to solve this problem, but you have to try to find it with your efforts. Success sure. Everyone is able to do it. The cost is virtually none. Salvation is accomplished through thoughts, and thoughts cost us nothing. They are like a gentle breeze of summer wind. Salvation is free for everyone. It is enough to create goodness and love with thoughts. With thoughts create heaven around you. Jesus showed how to do it. 1739. We are born on earth to find eternal life. Padre Pio's words. There is no other purpose for our life in the galaxy, on this earth. But not everyone understands this, because everyone has been manipulated with promises of paradise on earth. The aliens are conducting us in this way. Aliens, these are angels, what once left the true heaven, and we left with them. Also as angels. Today, after much energy turbulence of our soul, we mutate differently. We are forced to choose different material bodies. The galaxies have great possibilities to extend biological and energetic life artificially. But salvation as such is not in it. One has to reach much higher. Desires produce the greatest power in the soul desires and wants. With thoughts and desires wanting, we can save ourselves, but of course, the most beautiful ones. 1740. If people knew how much they lose by abandoning love, they would never allow themselves to do so. Padre Pio's words. Abandoning love is far worse in its consequences than any bodily illness and death. When this is understood, there will be progress in culture and social mores. 1741. Speculation is for those who keep looking and can't find. What matters to a Catholic is love of the world and God, not speculation. 1742. Knowledge of the hereafter is not the most important thing. Everyone will know all the worlds after death. Now, for salvation to occur through this knowledge, the most important thing is love and tolerance shown to everyone in the form of service. This plays the most important role in perfecting oneself. And as we become perfect, we will be closer to God and His knowledge of all things. 1743. The body and soul are so fused that there is no difference for material consciousness between body and soul. Although there is, the soul is perfect, but the body is not, it suffers. The soul wants this or that, the body is not able to realize it, does not manage to satisfy the soul. The soul wants, and the body gets off. Here is a serious problem. What is the reason for this disharmony? Something once went wrong. The flaw on the soul, Padre Pio's words, took its toll on the form of existence in the material world, which was not planned and happened. So we are talking about paradise lost. We painfully feel this on a daily basis. 1744. Man from the solar system is admitted to good and evil. He lives neither in heaven nor in hell, but somewhere in the middle. It is an opportunity for him to use limited powers and be responsible for them. Here he learns to be an angel. But do they all realize who they are and why they live here? They don't seek answers. They don't want to know what brought them to this region. We live very far from the center of the galaxy, at the very edge of it. What is the reason? What does it give us? Maybe closer to the center would be better. Who knows? 1745. A beneficial philosophy of life is to oppose the evil created by angels, to show them good attitudes and habits, so that they learn to raise even the smallest good to the highest. To be a sign of opposition like the philosopher Jesus. He knew what was at stake. To forgive and not indulge at the same time, to reprove and hug, to chastise and comfort, to show the noble path to the goal. A big role in this is played by parents raising their children, who come into the world with a zeroed-out memory. Parents should fill their new memory in a good way before they solidify and enter adult life. Gay marriage and their adoption of children is an absurdity of flesh and spirit. 1746. The philosopher must break the monopoly of his concepts and believe in God. Then calm down, get a little pious, then become a philosopher again, but already with a changed consciousness going in the direction of the mysticism of the spirit. 1747. Parents themselves must pray if they care about the welfare of the family. Not only that, they should control whether their children pray. Only with God can you be a free and noble angel. Outside of God, the galaxy is in trouble itself. Powerful civilizations have forgotten God, which is why they are so rampant throughout the cosmos, spreading materialism, atheism, and terror. With God, it is always easier and more peaceful. With God, you can save yourself. Without Him, you just live life after life, discussing and producing gadgets, spaceships, or vaccine needles. No space civilization offers salvation by itself. Only God has promised it in exchange for goodness and universal love. Earthlings already know about salvation, despite the fact that we are technologically backward and everything is breaking down here. Padre Pio's words. Perhaps it is the impotence that has taught us to strive and pray to God. Power and might always have problems with this in the cosmos. 1748. More important is spiritual thought than silver and gold, than space travel, than earthly paradise. Spiritual thought creates energies invisible to the human eye, and it brings peace, love, and delight to our souls. 1749. If a man saw what cosmic misery he was in, he would never dare to say that he was someone. In the womb he was a nobody, and now he says he is someone, an important politician, a Nobel laureate, a director, a king, a world champion. Pride and stupidity, ignorance. 1750. Don't think to yourself that you will always be happy with everything in life. You will be most dissatisfied with your own body. It is the source of all your troubles, moods. Joy comes from the spirit, from heaven, and the shapes of earth only resemble that perfect world. The biological body does not fulfill the desires of the soul, hence the troubles. 1751. Here is success, to be first in nothing and last in nothing. If you already want a race, you can be first in worshiping God, and be last in worshiping yourself. 1752. Accept everything that exists in the galaxies, except evil and suffering. However, after a thorough analysis, there will be little left to accept in this world. What you move, in you fall down. Hope only in the original heaven. 1753. Not only a new cognitive and creative creation, but the repetition of experiences, raptures, is just as beautiful and always thrilling the soul into different grandeur. 1754. Mental illnesses, loss of reason, brain impairments, cause it to be blocked from consciousness in some of its manifestations. The soul loses normal communication with the body. The soul relying on the body, even in a healthy body, is in trouble. Mentally ill people even more so. The soul is love, logic and conscience, joy without fear. People who are heavily addicted to the loss of consciousness due to various defects, e.g., genetic defects, accident defects, bad mutations, alcohol, energy drinks, Pepsi, drugs or diseases caused by poor nutrition, addicted to lack of memory, treated with psychotropics, do not have a clear conscience and orientation. Therefore, they can do anything without responsibility for what they do. Even the courts excuse such people, considering them insane. The cosmos is, on the one hand, temporarily beautiful, and on the other, constantly cruel. Why do we want to be born here so badly? Are we fully aware of what we are getting into? Awakening. Already the morning has awakened from sleep, and the memory taken from it says how much we love each other. In the enclosure of a day shaped colors of our lives, with a line of eternal seconds uninterrupted our presence. To this one direction we turn desires drawing sweetness untouchable reliable is the fire of love. Who sees the sense of it, the eternal sacrament will put a living seal. There you will be born again. You will exist once more to draw sweetness. 1755. Man is a being seized by ignorance and an imperfect physical body. The bodily machinery fails, and the soul does not know how to move happily within it. The body is a donkey to the soul. Once the fall of the soul was so great that it had to fall into this lowly physical mechanism. The road to the fall was very complicated and long. Teams of scientists, angels, worked on it. The return to harmony will occur when we regain a spiritual body, beautiful and perfect, which St. Paul mentions, and which Jesus showed in the transfiguration of himself on Mount Tabor. For the time being, we have to participate in the hardship and atrophy of the cells of the body, the desiccation of the body with the internal biological system, and eventually death. This is the system that prevails here. It is not a miraculous system, but rather destructive biological life. Everything works on the principle of metabolism, as it does not have a self-propelling perpetual motion machine. No power supply. Everything decays after time and seemingly renews itself. The universe has less and less energy because its creators unplugged the power plug. They have run away from God and forgotten him, although they know he is. Padre Pio's words. Therefore, death follows. From these bad systems we must liberate ourselves. How? By faith for now, through love for God and souls endowed with eternity. This liberation is called self-salvation, which Jesus encouraged. But he did not impose it on anyone and did not impose it on anyone. He even said, "Verily, verily, I say and am he."